For years, the war on organized crime has been fought pretty much the same way: raids, arrests, and long prison sentences. But what if that whole approach is, well, just wrong? Today, we're going to dig into a really different idea. What if we stopped fighting criminals like gangs and started treating them like rival businesses? I mean, that's a pretty bold statement to start with, right? Smash the gangs is not working. But the evidence really backs it up. The traditional strategy just isn't getting the job done. Sure, it sounds tough, it looks great on the evening news, but when you look at the results, they're just not there. So that's the big question. Why is it failing? If we're pouring all these resources into arrests and prosecutions, what are we missing? Why does organized crime seem to just bounce back no matter how many people we lock up? Well, according to this new way of thinking, it comes down to something called the whack-a-mole problem. And yeah, it's exactly like that arcade game. It's actually a perfect, if frustrating, metaphor for what's been happening. Think of it like this. When you arrest a street-level dealer or some enforcer, it's like clipping the top off a weed. It feels like you've solved the problem because you can't see it anymore. But the root system, the money, the supply lines, the leadership, that's all still there, completely untouched. And it's ready to sprout a brand new weed tomorrow. And here's the thing. From their perspective, it's not even a big deal. For a truly organized criminal business, losing a low-level guy isn't a crisis. It's just an occupational hazard. It's a line item in their budget, a calculated cost of doing business that they've already planned for. And that right there brings us to the absolute core of this idea. Maybe the biggest mistake we've been making is in how we even define the problem. We've been thinking about gangs when we should have been thinking about business enterprises. So the mantra to remember is this. Think OCB, not OCG. It's just one letter, but that one little change represents a massive shift in strategy. We've got to stop focusing on the organized crime group or gang and start laser focusing on the organized crime business. Let's break down what that actually looks like. The old OCG mindset? That's all about arresting the foot soldiers to get a conviction. The new OCB mindset flips that entirely. The focus is now on profit and infrastructure. It doesn't see a gang, it sees an entrepreneurial business. And the goal isn't just a conviction, it's to completely dismantle the entire enterprise. Okay, so what does this think OCB mind shift actually look like in practice? How do you turn this philosophy into a real boots-on-the-ground strategy? Well, it means you have to get proactive. You stop just reacting to crimes after they happen. Instead, you go after the very business model that makes the crime profitable in the first place. It's all about getting ahead of them by figuring out exactly how they make their money. And make no mistake, these are incredibly sophisticated operations. They're using business tactics that you'd recognize in any Fortune 500 company. We're talking complex supply chains, franchising models to expand their territory, using proxy agents to hide who's really in charge, and they are incredibly fast at exploiting new markets. This quote really just nails it. It doesn't matter what they're selling, whether it's drugs or weapons or something else. Those are just the products. The real focus, the thing that drives every single decision they make, is the money. It is always, always about the profit. So if you're going to fight a business, you can't just send in the same old team with the same old playbook. You need new players and you need a whole new game plan. And this is where the strategy gets really interesting. So here's the playbook, broken down into 3 steps. First, you analyze and target the business model itself. Second, you go after their assets, aggressively seizing the cash, the property, the investments. And third, and this is key, you bring in people with real-world business expertise to help you do it. A huge part of this is realizing that our traditional criminal justice system, well, it's just too slow and expensive to be the only tool we use. Putting one person in prison, where they might even keep running their business from the inside, it's not enough. We need sharper, faster, more creative tactics. And just look at how the skill sets have to evolve. You still absolutely need the traditional policing skills, like investigation and surveillance. But to win this new game, you've got to add a whole new toolkit of business skills, data analytics, forensic accounting, deep banking expertise, even boardroom strategies like a hostile takeover. So what's the end game here? If you adopt this mindset, you build this new team, what's the ultimate goal? It's actually pretty simple, and it's incredibly powerful. First, just remember the scale of what we're talking about. This is millions and millions of pounds in profit. This isn't just pocket change. It's the absolute lifeblood of these criminal organizations. And every single pound is a target. See, the ultimate goal isn't just to put the CEO in jail. It's to bankrupt the company. It's about seizing the assets, crushing the supply chains, and destroying the infrastructure so that the business is permanently non-operational. It can't just be handed off to the next person in line. And here's the best part. What happens to all that money you seize? It gets put right back into the system. It can be used to fund the very public services and help the very communities that were hurt by the crime in the first place. You literally turn their profits into a public good. This quote really says it all, doesn't it? The old ways haven't worked. To beat a business, you have to think like a business. It's a call to be smarter, faster, and way more creative. It really is time to get business-like about crime. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This whole idea of reframing a problem to find a totally new solution, it's incredibly powerful. It really makes you wonder, what other huge, stubborn problems could we finally solve if we just changed our perspective?